Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy that you decided to join our broadcast today. Today, we have an amazing guest. I call her the Dr. Phil of the Kingdom. She is an amazing counselor, Dr. Cecilia Yopp. She is a grief recovery method specialist and a doctor of Christian counseling. My testimony with Dr. Yopp is that years ago, I was battling an anxiety disorder, and I couldn't find the help. I was going to churches, I was going everywhere, and I just couldn't find the help. And I prayed for years that God would send someone that could minister to me. And she came and she took me through weeks of therapy. And it was such a blessing to me. And I'm telling you, Dr. Yopp, I'm so happy that you're here today to share with us. And can you just take a moment to tell the people who you are and introduce yourself to them?
Well, thank you, Dominique, so much, first of all, for having me. I look for the opportunity as often as I can have to hopefully normalize this very important discussion on grief. And we have been in each other's lives in some way or another for a very long time. So again, thank you so much for this opportunity for this particular platform. So as you mentioned, I'm a PhD in religious philosophy. My major area of concentration is Christian counseling. And as far as the work is concerned that I do now, I am a certified advanced grief recovery specialist through the Grief Recovery Institute. So that allows me to do the work that I have come to learn to know without doubt is my life work. And that is as a grief worker to guide people from the process of discovering emotions surrounded by losses to the other side, which is grief recovery.
Awesome. You know, we hear so much about grief, and I think there's like this mystery that surrounds it. You know, how do we grieve? How do we grieve the right way? How do we grieve the wrong way? And so there's just a lot. So I'm just so happy to be talking with you about this for this next few moments to really clear up a lot of the misconceptions that people may be having concerning grief. Since COVID-19, the number of people on anxiety and depression medications has increased. In our culture, many of us will pay hundreds for designer bags, but we don't see the value of investing into our mental health. Dr. Yopp, why is it important that we as a culture learn how to embrace counseling?
You know, Dominique, unfortunately, there's a lot of truth in what you just said, that statement you just said. You know, there seems to be more times than not that our priorities are kind of a bit skewed, okay, to say the least. It's extremely important to invest in mental health, to invest in counseling and grief education, so that when we face those inevitable life moments, those events that cause us sadness and sometimes trauma, right? We're able to regain that sense of well-being, right? So that's why it's very important to become, to take care of yourself in the sense of investing in yourself as far as your mental health is concerned. To get that mental completeness, meaning whatever happened to you in the past, you're able to complete your relationship to the pain surrounding those traumatic losses and those traumatic things that we've gone through in life. I've lived all over the world. I've lived in 3 different countries, about 5 different states, and visited several others. And no matter where I went, no matter what language was spoken, I have learned that universally, we are all grievers, right? We've all gone through something that has been an experience that's caused us some type of pain or loneliness or feelings of isolation and things like that. There are over 8 million people a year that become grievers just from loss of a loved one by death alone, right? So it's extremely important. We're all grievers. We still don't want to talk about it. We're still needing to normalize talking about grief so that we can, be productive at living and not just enduring life, right? So that we can break those unhealthy mental and emotional, I'll call them traditions that we are so, known to generation after generation to continue on. So that's why it's really important to invest in yourself emotionally, to get that emotional completeness. And it's something that I do as a grief specialist. I will guide a person through a 7-week action-oriented program to help them learn how to properly grieve.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that's so amazing. There's a scripture that says that, I wish above all things that you will prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. And our soul is our mind, our will, and our emotions. And what good is it for us to have a lot of money and a lot of success and, to have a marriage, but we're just so broken on the inside. We see so many successful people acquire so many things, and then they go home and they blow their brains out, or they're addicted to some type of habit that they just can't get rid of because we're focusing on those superficial things, but we don't really think that dealing with our mind and our emotions is so important. So I love that you brought that point out.
And as a matter of fact, it's important too, just to mention that, especially within our diaspora, a lot of us, even if we don't go to church now, if we're not believers now, whatever the case is, for the most part, most of us grew up with grandma or somebody taking us to church, right? We have that foundation. And that foundational lesson, or those foundational lessons that we typically learned, right, was that if there was a problem, you pray about it and have faith about it. And if you prayed about it and had faith about it, then it'll be okay. There's nothing else to be done. So when I'm still feeling sad or upset about something that's going on in my life, although I've prayed about it, although I've had faith about it, then I'm told that, well, I didn't have enough faith. It wasn't strong enough. Or, more than likely I'm being possessed by a spiritual demon. And I'm not trying to make light of it, but that's just something that within our community, we've been taught quite often, right? So not only am I having these grief emotions, I'm being told that, well, it's your fault that you have them, right? Because you didn't have enough faith or you didn't pray hard enough. So it just kind of leaves us, again, tethered to the relationship, to all of the negativity that's surrounded by loss. And it helps us to continue to live being guided by the myths of grief.
Wow. What an interesting point. And I think I've told you before that before I met you, they were telling me that I had a demon in me and that, I didn't have enough faith in God. And this is why I was going through the anxiety. So I had anxiety about having anxiety, and it just only exacerbated it. And it was just made everything worse. So it's so amazing that you're saying these things, because I think it's so very important. I was at a point where, when I met you, I couldn't even get through school because it was so debilitating towards me. And so now, years later, I still use the principles that you actually taught me in those sessions. And even when I feel myself having a slight panic attack, or when I'm feeling anxious again, I go back to those same principles that I learned from you like over 10 years ago, and it helps me to recover from that. And right now I finished my first degree. Now I'm about to finish my second degree. And I would not have gotten here if it had not been for those sessions and those principles that I learned within those sessions. So it's definitely very, very vital. I agree. Dr. Yopp, most of us think of grief as something we experience when a loved one dies, when in fact grief can be the loss of a job, a relationship, health. When I think about grief, I was talking to my friend the other day, and we were talking about, grieving, just having this little conversation among ourselves. And he was talking about how, we don't want to let, a lot of times we're trying to hold people hostage. We try to control them because we don't want to grieve. We don't want to experience the loss of them. And this happens at churches. This happens in relationships where we hold on to people so tightly. We just don't want to let them go because we don't want to go through that grief process. So can you tell us, why is grieving rightly so important?
Well, as you said, people don't want to let go, right? And it's always important to do something that you're going to do the correct way, right? Because you get the most impact on it, right? It's mostly efficient for you when you are doing something the correct way, right? That's number one. So at the Grief Recovery Institute, and in the Grief Recovery Handbook, as a matter of fact, great resource. We learned that there are over 40 different life experiences that we go through in a lifetime, right? That causes us grief, right? It causes us these emotions surrounding grief and pain and all this type of thing. So let's start with something important, right? The definitions of grief, right? There's two definitions that we talk about at the Grief Recovery Institute. Number one, that grief is a normal and natural reaction to an emotional loss. It's normal and it's natural for you to feel sad, to feel upset, to feel pain, to feel resentment. And it's normal and natural for you to want to share that with somebody else, right? And that's something that I think most of us don't understand, because we've been taught by society, grieve alone. Don't want to hear it. Here comes Debbie Downer, right? We don't want to here comes Domanique looking sad all the time, right? Nobody wants to deal with that because we haven't been taught how to properly deal with that, right? Number two definition for grief is that it's the conflicting feelings that we have, right, surrounding a loss, right? When something that is a normal behavior for us, a natural, normal behavior that we're going through, and that stops or it ends or it changes, those conflicting feelings that come along with that, that's a part of grief as well, right? So for example, real quickly, if you were a caretaker to a loved one for years, right? You've watched them be healthy to dementia to dying, right? On the one hand, you're heartbroken, you're sad this person has died, right? Your loved one has died. On the other hand, it's a sigh of relief, right? I'm no longer having to be in that caretaker mode. I now can possibly get part of my life back, right? So those conflicting feelings, they don't seem to go together, but that's all a part of grief. It's all normal and natural emotions that we have when things like that have changed. So learning to take those proper steps to grieve properly, and so that's something that I will teach you as your grief specialist. I will teach you those proper steps to take, right? It enables us to, one, recognize that our grief is normal, our grief is natural, right? It enables us to recognize that the conflicting feelings that you may be experiencing because of a loss, it's normal, it's natural to feel happy about a situation and sad about a situation at the same time, right? So it helps us to recognize all these things. And it enables us to recognize those other intangible losses, right? That we've talked about, loss of faith. Let's say someone was molested, right? So there's a loss of trust, a loss of security, all these different intangibles that we grieve as well. So learning to grieve properly allows us to understand that these are things that are going on in our life, right? And it also enables us to understand that these changes are not always things that are negative. Okay, so we go back to it being something that is a change in or end of a natural or something that's become our normal behavior. You got a promotion at work. It's an amazing thing, right? But on the one hand, you're excited, great money, better money, I can do more things. And on the other hand, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little scared, right? So those conflicting feelings, it's all about grief. So it's not necessarily always because of a negative loss. So those are the things that we're able to recognize, we're able to handle in the proper way when we learn those particular steps. So it teaches us also, most importantly, I think, it teaches us that we're not broken, right? There's nothing wrong here, nothing wrong with us. Our hearts are broken. We're sad, right? And we have this desire to express those feelings, and that's natural and it's normal.
Wow. I think that is so liberating as you were saying that, because there's like this shame that's associated with grieving. You're almost seeing that if you're in grief, you're weak, you don't have faith, there's something wrong with you. And, I can remember, and I remember saying this to you earlier, that, when I had losses in my life, I'm an intercessor. People were saying, no, we need to get you back on the altar right now, and so I was not allowed to grieve. So I had to give myself the permission to, even though others didn't allow me to. And so I think that's so very important. You talk about these myths that are associated with the grief process. Could you just give us a few of these myths that we believe about grieving?
Yeah, absolutely. There's 6 major myths that have been defined at the Grief Recovery Institute, these 6 major myths of grief. And you can get more information at griefrecoverymethod.com. So I'll give you those links and everything. And there are things that since we were born, basically, right, you've kind of been taught these things. We've watched our parents, our grandparents, members of society, friends, and everyone else do these exact same things. And to be honest, we've all probably can say that we are guilty. And I'm, skeptical about saying guilty because that means you have intentions on harming someone. So not guilty in the sense of trying to harm someone, but we have done these same things. We've said some of these same things to people over the course of our lifetime, trying to be helpful, right? And we can have good intentions, but good intentions or not, it does not negate the fact that sometimes the things that we say or that we convey to other people are still harmful, right? And unhelpful. So these 6 major myths of grief, right? Number 1, you'll probably start nodding like, yep, I know that one. Been there, done that, said it to someone as well. Number 1 says, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad about it. Just, it just kind of diminishes the fact that you are feeling bad about a loss, right? So it says, don't feel bad, right? Just kind of get over it, right? So the second one says to us that replace the loss and everything will be okay, right? And a lot of times we hear that one the most when we are children and, we've lost a pet or something like that, right? So you lose your pet hamster and you're crying and you're upset. And mommy says, don't worry about it. Don't feel sad. We'll go get another one this weekend, right? Again, diminishing the pain and the hurt that this person's feeling. Number 3 tells us to grieve alone, right? Growing up, there have been plenty of times you get in trouble, you're crying, or even just sad about something. If you're going to do all that crying, go to your room, right? Or when you are trying to talk to a friend and you get emotional, one of the first things we tend to do is hand someone a tissue, right? You have great intentions, but what that is conveying is that you want me to stop crying. You don't really want to hear what I have to say because it's something that's making you uncomfortable, right? So don't feel bad. Replace the loss. Grieve alone. Time heals all wounds. That's another one. Right? The only thing, Dominique, that we can expect from time is that it's going to pass. That's all that we can get from time, right? It's not going to heal our wounds the longer things go on, right? Then it says, be strong. The one you were just talking about, be strong for others, right? Suck it up, buttercup. You have all these other people out here looking up to you and waiting for you to do this and need you for that, right? So we're always told to be strong, or people will come to you and say, well, you're such a strong person, Dominique, right? So that's conveying to you, okay, I can't not be okay today. It's not okay for me to not be okay, right? And one of the last one says to keep busy. Just stay busy. Go to work. Study hard, Dominique. Do some more plays, direct some more plays. Just keep busy and keep your mind off of it, and everything's going to be okay. So those are the 6 major myths that around, universally, basically, from childhood on, we've learned these particular things. And these are things, like I said, that keep us tethered. They keep us tethered to the pain and the resentment and the anger and all the negativity, right? Because it does not allow us the space to express those feelings so that we can get that emotional completeness.
Wow, you're so prophetic. There's a lot of things that you were saying as you were talking. There's specific things that I have actually been going through, that I've been told. When I went through I think it was one of the biggest losses of my life. One of the biggest things they told me was, go do some plays. And doing a play, it's so important. I'm like, I'm grieving, I'm hurting now. And it's like they were getting a little frustrated with me. No, you need to start doing plays. And that's how you deal with it. That's how you do it. And so, Dr. Yopp, this is so important, I think, because many of us have been stuck in our grief for so long because we've been taught all of these fallacies, all of these myths. And so many of us have never fully worked through our grief. And so it's affecting so many other areas of our lives.
Absolutely.
Our relationships, our health, our mental status, our ability to progress in life, our professional life. It's affecting everything because we have not effectively allowed ourselves to really go through this grief process. And this is why people like you are so important, that we talk to you and that people come to you so that we can work through this grief process so that we can be emotionally whole. Like Paul said, I wish above all things that you will prosper, even as your soul is prospering. And so God wants our soul to prosper above our bank accounts, above our relationships, because if that soul prospers, then guess what? Then the bank account is probably going to prosper. Your relationships are going to prosper. Your marriage is going to prosper, because everything flows out of the heart. The Bible says, guard your heart, for out of it flows every issue in life. And so as we go to get counseling and we receive this, as we deal with our hearts, every part of our lives are going to be dealt with. And so that's why this is so invaluable. And so again, wow, this is so amazing. We're coming to the end of this interview now. Dr. Yopp, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate that. This lady is off the chain, y'all. I'm telling you, you want to do a session with her. I've had people say they have gone through sessions with other people and it wasn't effective. Let me tell you, when you go through a session with Dr. Yopp, you're going to have that aha moment. You're going to have that moment where you are going to feel change. It's going to be transformative. You're going to walk out with a caveat every single time, and it is going to be an amazing encounter. So I want to tell all of y'all, please book her today. And I promise you, this is going to be life changing. She's not paying me to do this. I actually asked her to come do this interview. And the reason why I asked her to do this interview is because I feel like she has a treasure on the inside of her. And I feel like what she has can impact so many people around the world because she is carrying something that you need. And if you're watching this today, it's a reason why you're watching this. God doesn't have you watching this for no reason. It's not by coincidence that you stumbled upon this video. God is showing you something. He's revealing to you something through this video, whether it's by just the message or whether it's by coming into contact with this woman and booking a session. I believe that God wants to bless you. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Yopp. And I wish you the best. And I know that God is going to excel you. I'm telling you, God, television, Newsweek, I'm telling you, you name it. I see you all over the place because the world is in need. Yes, the world is in need of what you have. After this session, your head probably going to be, big by the time I'm done with you. But, but yeah. So the world really needs what you have on the inside. So again, I thank you for this interview. I brought you in because I really feel like what you have, people need it, and it can really transform lives. So, so the last thing I want to ask you is, how can people get in contact with you, and also, do you have any final words?
Absolutely. And thank you for I'm going to try to keep the head a little,
Please.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I really mean that. I really sincerely appreciate that. So to reach me, best case is to text me at 813-324-4474, 813-324-4474. You can reach out via text. I'll get back to you, send you my link for my calendar so that we can schedule a free consultation. And, I would be honored. I truly am sincerely honored to have this work to do, right? To be called to do this work. So I would love to walk anyone through my one-on-one online sessions, the privacy of your own home. It's a 7-week work-oriented program. You got to put in the work. But as long as you're willing to put in the work, I'm there to guide you to the recovery process, to the end of your grief, right? It's a non-judgmental space. It's your private space with me. And I'm going to pull it out of you. I'm going to pull it out of you so that you can have the most impact. So again, 813-324-4474, text me. And if you let me know that you watched this video with Dominique today, I will offer a discount, a significant discount. If you need me to come to your church and talk about grief recovery, or to take your administrators of your church through the grief recovery program, I can do that as well. So just give me a text at that number, 813-324-4474. So Dominique, thank you again for allowing me the platform to, like I said, normalize the discussion on grief, right? We still don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about mental health enough. It's getting more and more light, especially because of the pandemic hitting and things happening. But we need to talk about grief. We need to normalize that discussion. So I appreciate you for the opportunity to be able to do that. And I can't reiterate enough that it's just very important to learn those proper steps to grieve. Does it mean that you'll never be sad again? Absolutely not. But allow me the opportunity to just walk you through those proper tiny steps that you need to take to get that emotional, that emotional completeness. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be here for that.
No problem. Any final words?
Just, it's okay to not be okay, right? It's natural and it's normal that if you have experienced an emotional loss, to feel sad about it, to feel okay about it, to feel indifferent about it, right? To be upset with somebody. It's natural and it's normal, right? And it's natural and normal to want to share those experiences with someone. You know, we typically say when we get good news, the first thing we want to do is go tell somebody about it. Somebody who's important to us, we want to tell them about it. It's actually the same response. Your natural response when you have bad news is actually the exact same thing. You want to go tell someone about it who's important to you, right? But we just have not been allowed to have that space to do that enough, right? Because of those myths that we were just talking about. So your grief is different from everyone else's grief, right? You can grieve the same person, but your relationship with that person is going to be uniquely yours versus the relationship that person had with somebody else, right? So your grief will not look like anyone else's, and no one else's grief will look like yours, but just understand the importance of reaching out to get help and to learn how to grieve properly.
Awesome. When you made that statement, it's okay to not be okay. That was so liberating to me, because it says that, you know, we feel this pressure to always be okay, for everything to be perfect. But it's okay to be in the process. It's okay to be developing. It's okay that everything is not okay. And I think that sometimes that's what prevents us from really showing who we are and coming to counseling, because we want to have this facade on, because if I go, then maybe I'm saying that I'm not okay, but it's okay to be in the process. And so thank you so much for this liberating conversation. Again, we're going to post the information, your contact information here, so that everyone can see it. Again, thank you guys so much. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can get more videos. Thank you again, Dr. Yopp, and we will see you guys the next time. Bye-bye.